My wife cheated on me with my lover behind my back. For years, I've known what people say about me behind my back. They say I'm a chicken hater and a wuss. I suppose it had a lot to do with the fact that my wife was 10 years older than me, and partly because I was inclined to do what she told me, but so what? What's wrong with trying to make your wife happy? I considered myself extremely lucky when I found Kathleen, and that I hit the jackpot in the lottery when she said yes to my marriage proposal. I did everything I could to make her happy and content, and if that made people think I was a coward and a wuss, so be it. They were right when it came to the fact that I was whipped. I'd had my share of women before I met Kathleen, and I could say without a doubt that Kat was the best I'd ever had. Not only was she great in bed, but she wanted sex all the time. Even after 7 years of marriage, we still had it 5 or 6 times a week. She was beautiful and mine. It worked out for me. So what if I had to pay for it with a few yes, darling, and a few whatever you say, love? At least that's what I thought until last Saturday night. Kathleen's best friend Marcia worked at the same company as Kathleen, and Marcia had gotten a promotion. Kat decided to throw a party for her, and it just so happened that I found myself in a house full of people I barely knew. Some I had met at company picnics and Christmas parties, but I had never memorized these people. You meet so many people and spend so little time with them that they are barely memorable, and then you don't see them again for another 6 months. I felt like a stranger in my own home. So as not to seem awkward, I tried to be a good host. I made sure the ice bucket was full, that the drinks didn't run out, that the bowls of chips, pretzels, and dip didn't run out. The party had been going on for a couple hours when suddenly I felt uneasy. I don't know why, I just did. I noticed, or I thought I noticed, that people were looking at me with a strange expression on their faces, and a couple guys, I'd say their looks were like smirks. I didn't really think about it at the time, it just seemed odd. About 3 hours into the party, I noticed that I hadn't seen Kathleen in a while. This was curious, because it was her party, and I expected her to be socializing with the guests. Maybe she was outside to get some fresh air. I saw that the ice bucket was empty, and I went to the freezer of the fridge to get more, but saw that it wasn't there, and I had to go down to the basement. We have a 23 cubic foot freezer, and we put several bags of ice in it, expecting to use it during the party. As I was taking the bag of ice out of the freezer, there was a bang above my head, and then a second or two later, another bang. It was strange because the room directly above the freezer where I was standing was Kathleen's private office, and she had locked it before the party so no one would come in and poke their nose in. I don't know why I did what I did because I'd never done it before, but I stood on the freezer and put my ear to the heating duct that went to Kath's office. A conversation came out. Faint, but I could make it out. It was obvious that a woman was having sex in Kathleen's office. Had Kathleen let her in, or had she bolted? "Make love to me," the woman said. "Lover, you know I love you." "I can't believe we're doing this with him here in the house." "Why don't you stop worrying about him and just have sex with me? Come on, lover, do it with me." I heard a few sharp cries and was about to get off the freezer, go upstairs, and stand up so I could see who was coming out of the room when I realized I didn't need to do that. "That was really strong, lover. I haven't made love like that since our first time. What, 3 years ago?" "Closer to 3.5 years. Perhaps it was because the element of danger sharpened your senses." "Danger? What danger?" "My God, Kat, you're having sex with me in your own home and your husband is here. He could walk in on us at any moment." "No, he won't come in. First of all, it's my room, and if it's locked, he knows not to come in. Even if he did come in and caught us, all I'd have to do is tell him to sit in the corner and watch, and we'll talk about it later." "And he would have done that?" "He would if he wanted me around." "I didn't know you could be so cold." "There's a lot you don't know about me, darling. Do you know that I'm still horny? Do you know that I plan to have sex with you again?" "What about your guests?" "They'll be taken care of by hubby, and you take care of me." I climbed out of the freezer and just stood there looking at the bag of ice cubes. My world had just crashed down on my head. I couldn't believe it. How could I? Kathleen and I had sex 5 or 6 times a week, and that wasn't, at least to her, close enough. She'd been cheating on me for over 3 years. How in God's name could she do that, and I had no idea? I didn't even want to think about what else she'd said about me not having sex with her as well as her lover. I loved her as much as I loved life itself, and as I thought about it, I saw that no matter what she did, she was still loving and affectionate, and my quality of life didn't suffer in the slightest. But as cliché as it sounds, a man has to do what a man has to do, and there was one thing she said to her lover that I couldn't accept. I would have gone to sit in the corner and watch if she had told me that. But would I? No way, not in this life. I carried the ice pack upstairs and filled the ice bucket. Noticing that the vodka was almost gone, I opened a new bottle, then checked all the plates of chips and pickles and made sure they were full, then went back to my den. Kat and I had decided early on that we didn't want kids, which was the right decision as there would be no custody disputes now, but even if we didn't have a family, we still wanted a big house. We looked for something with a piece of land so we could have some privacy. We found a 4-bedroom ranch on 6 acres and bought it. Kathleen took 1 bedroom for her home office, and I took 1 for my den. I went into my room and walked over to my clothes closet, which I had turned into a mini pantry and where I had put my gun safe. I opened the safe and began to ponder. The 19 Wallen A1 and 92F would be overkill. They would inspire more fear, but in a small room, they would make more noise than I wanted. I settled on the .22 caliber target pistol, made sure it had a full clip, and walked over to my desk where I kept the key to Kathleen's room. The lovers were lying on Kathleen's leather couch when I walked through the door. Kathleen was on her knees and Greg was having sex with her. They were both facing the door when I entered the room and I could see the shock on their faces. Kathleen came to her senses first, and I'll be damned if she didn't do what she promised Greg she would do. "Close the door, honey. We don't need anyone looking in here. It's not about us, honey. We're fine. You'll see. Just come back to the party and we can talk about it when all the guests have left." I almost laughed at the thought that she actually thought I would do that. Instead, I pulled the target pistol from behind my back where I kept it. "You're right, Kat. It's not about us. It's about me. You certainly don't think very highly of me as a man if you expect to be able to cuckold me, tell me everything is fine, and then send me back to your party to take care of your guests while some asshole has sex with you in my own house." As soon as Greg saw the gun, he knew he was in trouble, and that's exactly what I wanted him to think. I pointed the gun in his direction, and he reached for Kathleen to get up from the couch. I'm a better-than-average gun owner. I shot expert in the Army and belonged to 2 gun clubs where I shot competitively, but Greg didn't know that and was going to think that every time I shot, I was aiming at him and that I was just a bad shot. Just behind him on the bookcase was a 2-foot-tall porcelain cat. It had belonged to Kathleen's great-grandmother and had been inherited by her. It was a family heirloom, and Kathleen had taken every precaution to make sure it was not damaged in any way. It shattered when my first shot hit it. Kathleen screamed, and Greg, reaching for his pants, growled, "Oh my God." "I'm gonna kill you, asshole," I shouted at him, sending the next shot into Kathleen's computer. The 3rd shot blew her monitor apart, and Greg forgot about his pants and ran out of the room without his clothes on. I was tempted to put 1 bullet in the doorframe next to him as he went out the door, but I didn't know if anyone was in the hallway, so I decided to put 1 in the ceiling just above the door. Before running after him, I turned to Kathleen. "Can you believe it? I keep missing that asshole. I need some practice." I then followed Greg out of the room, firing 2 more rounds into the ceiling to make sure Greg kept running toward the front door. I saw the amused faces of several people as Greg ran naked across the room and out the front door. I followed him out onto the porch and fired another round into the air. He must have left the keys in the car because it roared to life and he tore down the driveway. I walked back into the house and saw that everyone was looking at me. "This isn't the end of the party, guys. It's just part of the fun. For all you single guys, and married guys too if your wives don't mind, Kathleen is going to have sex on the leather couch in her home office. Never mind, I said, waving my gun. Here's what happens if you don't get my permission first. Bring the boys to her. She's men and more of them. I went back into Kathleen's office and she was sitting on the couch crying. I walked over to her and pushed her onto her back. Stop crying. Greg is gone, but I think a replacement is on the way. I really didn't want to do this, but I didn't want anyone who might take me up on my offer to come in and see a crying cat, so I pressed my lips to hers and kissed her. I had sex with her, keeping my eyes on the door, and then what happened happened. First one guy walked in, another guy walked in a minute later, and soon there were 7 men in the room. Sex was always good with Kathleen, and she was always responsive. Come on, guys, take your clothes off. And 2 of them did, while the other 5 just watched and waited to see what would happen. Her favorite fantasy was always to have her make love to several guys and she would pretend to try to fight them off. I asked one of the guys to approach her. My words reached Kathleen's brain and her eyes widened. She opened her mouth to protest, but the guy was already there, and any protests she was about to make were stifled in her throat as the man began to have sex with her. I looked at the other naked guy and said, "Come here and get ready." I looked at the other 5. Come on, guys. The 3 of us can't hold her down for long. Her personal record is 5 guys for 4 hours. With as many as we have now, we can hold her until 6 in the morning. Come on, get undressed while I go and get myself a fresh drink. As I left the room, the couple was already unbuckling their belts. I made my way to the kitchen and made myself a drink, and then went back to Kat's room. I got there just in time to see the man who had taken my place leave and another take his place. I gathered Greg's clothes and the gun from where I had put it and went down to the basement. I used Greg's clothes as cleaning rags and oiled the gun and then went upstairs and put it back in the gun safe. As I passed Kat's room, there were 2 women standing in the hallway looking in the doorway. One of them turned to the other and said, "I didn't realize she was such a cheater." "Of course you did," the other replied. "We all knew she was sleeping with Greg behind her husband's back, and if that doesn't make her a cheater, I can't imagine what might." I glanced across the room at them where 3 men were pushing a resisting Kathleen and was pleased to hear a thin scream as one of the men had sex with her. One of the women turned to me. "Doesn't it bother you that she's doing this?" "Not since I caught her with Greg tonight." "You never knew?" "Just an hour ago. I went into the kitchen and was putting the coffee on when Marcia came up to me. Why did you do that to her? She loves you and you show your love for her by doing this to her? You're not the good guy she tells everyone about." "I'm a good guy, Marcia, until you pissed me off. Ironically, I think making love to other men behind my back is cheating on me, and I'm sorry I don't dare give her what she really deserves." Marcia gave me a glare and then turned and walked away. When the coffee was ready, I poured myself a cup and went out on the patio, sat sipping my coffee and looking up at the stars. I heard the door open and close behind me, and then a voice said, "Have you thought about what you're going to do with me yet?" I turned around and saw a very pretty woman looking at me. I suppose the logical question would be, why should I be thinking about what I'm going to do with you? Well, you chased my traveling companion away so quickly that he didn't have time to gather me with him. You were Greg's traveling companion? I'm sorry, I thought he came alone. I'm not his traveling companion. I'm his ex-wife. I take it you didn't know anything until tonight either? I suspected, but I had no proof. I'll make sure you get a ride home after this is over tonight. I don't want to go home to that asshole. Okay. You can stay in the spare bedroom tonight and we'll decide what to do in the morning. That won't work either. I don't want to be here when everyone leaves and you and your wife have to face each other and work things out. Okay, then I'll take you to a motel or hotel. I can't do that either. Since all I was doing was going to a party with my husband, all I left the house with was a small clutch purse with everything I needed to update my makeup. I'll get you a room and pay for it, okay? No, not really. I don't like sleeping alone. What's your point? Are you familiar with the word revenge? Are you familiar with the concept of revenge? I don't know if I can help you with that. I'm just a little out of sorts tonight. You can help me, dear, that I promise you. Okay, I'll try, but I have to stay here and see this through, so it might take a while. I went back to Kathleen's room and did what she wanted. I sat down on a chair in the corner and watched. They rocked Kathleen on the couch, pushing and prodding her while she alternately protested and begged them to have sex with her. It was another 2 hours before the men began to dress and leave. When the last man left, I got up from my seat and walked over to Kat. Have you had enough, sweetheart? Or should I take you into town and push you out on the street corner? If you don't take too much, you can get a lot more men. She looked at me with tears streaming down her cheeks and said, You asshole! How could you? I thought you loved me. It was easy, Kathleen. All I had to do was catch you with Greg, and that made it very easy. I spent 4 days at the motel with Greg's wife, Sandy, and did my best to get her even with Greg. On the 4th day, she stated that she had to go home and get even with Greg. I drove her home, and as she was getting out of the car, I gave her my cell phone number. I'm getting an apartment in the next couple days, and we seem to be getting along pretty well. She smiled at me and said she'd be sure to contact me. I went back to the hotel, checked out, then took the U-Haul truck and drove home. Kathleen wasn't there when I arrived, and I had time to pack and load almost all of my stuff into the truck when she got home. Where have you been? I was so worried about you. Why? I'm not your one to worry about me anymore. Don't say that, baby. We love each other. We'll just sit down and talk about it. I'm sure we can work it out if we try. No, we can't, Kathleen. A drunken prank at a party I might forgive and put in the past. But an affair? No way in hell. But that's all it was, baby. A drunken indiscretion. It's a hoax, Kathleen. I heard the whole thing. I heard you telling Greg that I didn't have enough sex with you, and how you told him I wasn't as good as he was. Drunken outrages don't last 3.5 years. Is that why you humiliated me in front of my coworkers? You know I had to quit my job, don't you? There was no way I could go back to work after what you let them do to me. Kathleen, go find someone who cares. And I picked up the last 2 bags and carried them to U-Haul. The end. Subscribe to my channel. Thank you.